But first, let's go ahead and get into Purdue and Michigan. The game B. Scott will be at on Saturday. Purdue versus Michigan, Big Ten championship game. It was a lot of fun on the final weekend of the regular season. The East was decided when number 2 Ohio State hosted number 3 Michigan. Michigan wins that one in impressive fashion, 45-23 over the Buckeyes. The Wolverines outscored Ohio State 21-3 in the fourth quarter. J.J. McCarthy had 263 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 touchdown on the ground. Donovan Edwards had 216 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then the Wild West was finally won. It was a situation where a couple of weeks ago you would theoretically have said, well, it would be insane, but literally any team can win the West right now. Purdue got their Black Friday deal in the form of Nebraska defeating Iowa 24-17, which meant that Purdue wins and they win the bucket game and they're in. Purdue does win that bucket game 30-16. Aiden O'Connell went for
16. That's a joke.
Yeah.
That last touchdown was just like
in garbage time. Yep.
Garbage time. I mean, technically Purdue if you take that one away, Purdue outscored IU in that second half 27-3.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive.
I mean, that is.
Aiden O'Connell had 290 yards, 2 touchdowns. Devin Maccabee 99 yards on the ground with a touchdown. Charlie Jones 4 catches, 143 yards and a touchdown. So that sets us up for Purdue and Michigan Big Ten championship game. The first meeting between these two schools since 2017. Michigan has won the last 4 meetings. The last Purdue win versus Michigan was in November of 2009. So I was in my...
It was that was a Joey Elliott-led team coached by Danny Hope that went into the Big House. Beat Michigan.
So that wasn't like...
They also beat Ohio State that same year. They did. It was the only time that, because then they almost beat Notre Dame earlier in the season as well, and they did not go to a bowl. They did not become bowl eligible. But I had a team. That team was led by Joey Elliott, Keith Smith at wide receiver, Ryan Kerrigan was on the line, Brandon King at corner. I mean, it was a really good team. Carson Wiggs was the kicker. So it was a really good team.
So to preview this game, we're going to do kind of a special edition of Hot or Cold, a special Big Ten Championship edition of Hot or Cold. Basically, if you're new to the show, I say a take, and we discuss whether or not it's a hot take or a cold take. So, take number 1, the Purdue passing attack will outgain the Michigan rushing attack. Looking at this, Purdue has the number 2 passing attack in the Big Ten, averaging 281 yards per game. Michigan has the 4th best pass defense in the conference. One thing I think is pretty interesting is that the Boilermakers are 2-1 versus the 3 pass defenses ahead of Michigan. Now, granted, they were held to 237 yards against Illinois. They were held to 199 yards versus Minnesota and 168 yards versus Iowa, which that was their loss, which is kind of...
And that was also, the wind was blowing like 50 miles an hour.
Exactly. So
that one. And then the Minnesota one, that was Devin Maccabee's coming out party. And
right.
He just ran roughshod over the Gophers, so you didn't really have to pass all that much that day.
Right. So but basically what I'm saying is that even when they've been playing those tough pass defenses in the Big Ten, they've been able to overcome that and more times than not get the win. Ohio State, the top passing offense in the conference, had nearly 350 yards versus the Michigan defense. So it does give you some hope for what Purdue can do through the air. But ultimately, I am going to say that this is a cold take. Michigan has the top rushing offense in the Big Ten, averaging 245 yards per game. Purdue is 8th against the run in the conference. We're likely going to see Blake Corum back. He was probably...
No, we're not.
We're not? Okay, cool.
Nope.
Well, because it said he was probable on the...
Yeah, but then Jim Harbaugh also came out and said he's going to need some work done.
Okay. Well, regardless...
He was probable against Ohio State. He tried to go, and it was not good for him. He could not go.
Regardless, they did just... even if he can't go, I mean, Donovan Edwards just had a big game against Ohio State as well, so...
Donovan Edwards has 2 broken thumbs.
Okay, well then, whatever. I don't. I still think Michigan is going to be able to run the football well.
Yeah.
Purdue's still going to get theirs through the air. But I think the safer bet is the Michigan rushing attack. So I'm going to say it's a cold take, and I'm going with Michigan's rushing attack to have the better game.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a cold take as well. It's going to be close, and it's not going to be like a big difference. Actually, you know what? I'm going to say this is actually going to be a hot take. I think Purdue's passing attack does outgain the rushing attack. Now, Purdue has given up some big rushers this year against, obviously, against Wisconsin and then Iowa as well. But I mean, they didn't put up more rushing yards than Purdue as averaging right now in passing yards. So by looking at that, I'm going to say it's a hot take. However, this thing could switch really quickly. Donovan Edwards will play. He's got 2 broken thumbs, so the only issue there is potential ball security. That could be an issue. However, Purdue's got a really deep defensive line, but their most underrated and at the same time we're now realizing is their best defensive lineman, Branson Dean. He is also going to be out for this game. Branson Dean means a lot to that defensive line, so that's a huge loss for Purdue. I'm still going to say this is a hot take though, just based off of averages, but it's not super hot. Can I say that? It's lukewarm.
Lukewarm can be your take. That is 100%.
I mean, look, when you look at the yardage between Michigan and Ohio State just blew Michigan out of the water when it came down to yardage. But Ohio State only had like 10 or something. I don't know. I know it's like Ohio State had a ton of yardage. They just could not score. So Michigan, I think if they're gonna look to the passing game in this game for sure, like they did this past weekend as well with JJ McCarthy finding success hitting the deep ball. And if there's one thing that Purdue has a weakness in, it's defending the deep ball. So that's why I think this could be a hot take, is because I think Michigan's going to focus more so on their pass game and utilize Donovan Edwards and JJ McCarthy to open things up a little for the passing game in the run game.
I mean, that was a very impressive game that McCarthy had through the. Definitely was surprised because you normally see this team live and die on the ground. I just checked. Blake Corum is still listed as probable, so I don't know if that's.
I don't think they're going to remove him. But off of
and plus, like
been said.
Plus, I mean, strategically, you'd like to still say he's probable, just so Purdue game plans for him, and then so we'll see.
And it's not like there's an IR or anything.
Well, right. But he's not listed as like doubtful or out yet, so we'll see. But regardless, I do think it could go either way. I'm gonna put my hat in the ring for Michigan though. All right, so take number 2. There will be more than 50 points scored in the Big Ten Championship. The over/under is 50 points. This is the 12th Big Ten title game. In the 11 previous, both teams have scored 30-plus points just once, and it hasn't happened since 2016. So you haven't seen both teams really light it up since 2016. However, at least one team has crossed the 30-plus point threshold in 8 of 11 games in the Big Ten Championship. The average total points for the Big Ten Championship game is 58.7. These are two top 5 offenses in the Big Ten. Michigan averages 40 points per game. Purdue, as the Spoilermakers in these big games, averages 36 points versus top 5 teams under Jeff Brohm. So this is a team that in the big moment where they are 3-1 against top 5 teams, they have been able to get the offense going and have really kind of shown that they can score with the best of them in these big games. Whether it's one team doing all the scoring, I think we will see a healthy total of points. So I'm going with it's going to be a hot take. I think we're going to see some points scored in this game. I don't think we're going to see, especially indoors, I don't think we're going to see, a 17-14 game. It's going to be both teams. Hopefully both teams. Hopefully it's not just one team going up and down the field. I will say there is a little bit of a difference, and we'll get to it here in a minute, between the Purdue team and the Iowa team. that made the Big Ten championship last year that got run out of the building 42-3. I think it is. We won't see that result necessarily.
No.
But I do think there's going to be a healthy amount of points scored in this game.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely a hot take. Purdue's offense has struggled here the past few weeks, but that's as things have gotten colder. The Indiana winds have started blowing extra hard. Rain has been falling, snow, whatever it be. Purdue's offense does not play well. It never really has played well in bad weather. Well, that goes right out the window. You're playing in a climate controlled building. I think this is definitely going to be a hot take. Michigan's going to put up points. Purdue's going to come in firing on all cylinders. They're going to put up points. I mean, all it really takes to get the over is a final score of 26-25, and boom, you hit it. So I think it's attainable to get over 50 easily. But yeah, this is an easy one. This is definitely a hot take because I just think these offenses, they're going to take full advantage of being inside, out of the elements, and going, wow, this could be fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's going to be a fun game to watch. And the final question before we get to our prediction here, the final take, I should say, Michigan will cover the spread right now, or at least the last time I looked at it, which was when I was making the outline the other day. The spread was 16.5 in favor of
I think
Michigan.
It's still
there? Okay.
Yeah.
So it could change, as time goes along, but right now it is 16.5. And so, that's the question. Will Michigan cover the spread? Last year, Michigan became the first team to cover the spread in the Big Ten Championship since 2018. The favorite has covered the spread in 5 of 11 Big Ten Championship games. One thing I thought was funny when I was looking at these numbers was the year that Ohio State won 59-0, the Cardell Jones game. Wisconsin was actually understandably favored by 4. So I was like, man, if you pick this Wisconsin to cover the spread in that game, you got beat by 63 points essentially. Now there was one game that was a push, Michigan State and Iowa. Michigan State was predicted to win by 3, and they did. The Wolverines are 7-4-1 versus the spread this season, according to Covers.com. The 3 games they didn't cover in the Big Ten, Maryland, IU, and Illinois, are all teams that Purdue beat during the regular season. As the underdog, Purdue is 3-3 against the spread. All 3 wins were outright against the spread. Everything about what I've just rattled off to you kind of says that it's a coin flip, as far as whether or not Michigan will cover the spread. There's nothing demonstrative that's saying that, that it's going to be, oh yeah, for sure, it's going to be a 17-point Michigan win. So I'm going to have some faith and say this game is going to be closer than some may think. I'm going to say this is a cold take. I think it's, it may be 14, it may be, 10, whatever it is. But I think Purdue can keep it close. Like you even said, I mean, a team that's got a chip on their shoulder, has nothing to lose, is dangerous. Michigan might be thinking like, oh, all we have to do is beat 8-4 Purdue and, see get in the, whatever. Now, like I said, I mean, Iowa, last year when Iowa made the Big Ten championship game, a big difference between them and this Purdue team is the fact that Iowa team was like almost, I think they were 13th out of 14 in terms of like total yards per game, like offensively. So their offense wasn't nearly as geared up, and Michigan came in again with one of the best defenses in the Big Ten, if not the best defense in the Big Ten. So of course they shut down Iowa and scored a bunch of points. I think this year, it's going to be a lot more points scored by Purdue. I think, like I said, it could be 13, it could be 14, it could be 10, but I think ultimately Purdue keeps it at least closer than the folks in Vegas may think.
Yeah, I agree. This is a cold take. I mean, I think Purdue could still, I'm going to say Purdue loses by 2 scores, but that's like 10, 13, 14, and that's still not covering the spread. So I'm going to say this is a cold take. I don't think Michigan covers the spread. At least I hope they don't. I want it to be competitive. I really don't want it to be a blowout, but it could at the same time. But I'm going to still say cold take.
Yeah. So, let's go ahead and get our championship prediction for the Big Ten. Who you think is going to win the game? I'm going to go with Michigan here. Ultimately, Michigan has the second best offense in the conference, both in terms of yards and scoring. We're gonna see. Obviously we're not sure who's suiting up at tailback for them. I mean, we're gonna see, like you said, Donovan Edwards. For sure, we'll see what else can be lumped in that rushing attack. They are coming off their best game of the season offensively. I would think so. I know they scored more points in other games, but to score 45 points against Ohio State, I mean, I think you would argue that's the best game of the season for Michigan by far. So they're coming off of that performance. Defensively, Michigan is the top defense in terms of yards allowed, and their decimal place is off the top defense in terms of points allowed in the conference. Well, I think Purdue has a better offense than Iowa did last season and won't allow things to get as ugly as last season's Big Ten title game. I think ultimately Michigan does get the win here. So I've got Michigan winning the Big Ten. It's going to be closer than the experts think, as I quote Lee Corso here, but I think ultimately Michigan does get the job done.
Yeah, I agree. I think Michigan wins this game. They just have their defense is good, top to bottom. Some of the areas that we saw them flex their muscle in last week is not areas we've seen them really flex this season, and mostly the deep pass. And that's where, like I said, Purdue struggles. They struggled against Nebraska with that. How many deep passes did they give up in that one? I mean, I think they gave up the 3 longest passes at that time of the season in the Big Ten. So that's going to be an issue. It could potentially turn into a track meet, but because of Michigan's defense, I think they ultimately come out on top. And like I said, I think it's by 2 scores.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, I'm hoping that the Spoilermakers have like one more in them. I think it could be really cool if that happens. So I'm rooting, honestly, like every conference championship weekend. We'll get to our conference championship picks here in just a second, but I'm always rooting for chaos. And so the more chaos you can introduce, the better. So hopefully we can see Purdue get the win. But yeah, I think right now what we'll do is we'll pick Michigan and then we'll be pleasantly surprised. That's what the hope is. About the Big Ten championship. But
maybe it's the crash kiss of death.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we can hope for.